Hello everyone and welcome back to another Fam 2 Cents cooking video, and today we are making collard greens. The ingredients are fairly simple. I got bacon, we got onions, we got the glory collard greens already cut and cleaned. We have garlic salt, seasoned salt, cayenne pepper, onion powder, and regular black pepper, and obviously some salt later on for taste, or you know, for whatever your taste is and compares to how much salt you want in it. But anyway, we're gonna get right into it and go ahead and start cutting the onion. You guys have seen me do this numerous times by now. Pretty straightforward. You just dice up your onion about as fine as you want it to be, and we'll set that aside for what comes next. Speaking of what comes next, we're gonna go ahead and dice up the bacon. Not really dice it, I guess. Based on the size that I'm cutting them in, it's more cubed. I mean, it's bacon. I'm not sure what terminology. You just gonna slice it up. Don't know what terminology to use here, but you're gonna cut it into little strips here, as you see me do here, and we're gonna transfer that into another bowl. This is gonna be the first thing that you cook in the pot, but you want to make sure that they're cut up, but they're still, you know, decent enough to have a bit of a bite. You want them to definitely be present in this dish. Now, after you've got the bacon nice and diced up, you want to go ahead and start putting the bacon into your nice hot pot. You can start separating them like I do here, and then eventually give up because this is extremely tedious. So I just poured them in there because I got tired of waiting. So you just want to make sure you give that a really good stir, and you want to separate that bacon. You don't really want it to stick together. It's not a big deal. It's going into the greens or whatever, and once you add the liquid, it's going to separate anyway. But you just want to make sure that it all cooks as evenly as you can. So go ahead and toss that in the pot, get that cooking and rendering down. You want nice crispy bacon, because once you put it into it, it's going to soften back up. But the benefit of making it crispy, as opposed to just kind of cooking it down, is you'll get a really nice texture once the collard greens are done. As you can see here, the bacon has finished pretty much cooking down to my liking. We're gonna go ahead and start to take that out. Now, usually, depending on how much bacon you're making, I usually only do 1 pack, but this was 2. There's a lot of grease in there, and you would usually use the grease on the bottom to go ahead and make the base for your broth. But in this instance, I don't think you want to go that route. So I poured a bit of it out and just used a little bit, added some butter, and then went on ahead and tossed the onions in afterwards, because that's too much. I mean, there's having some left over for flavoring or whatever, but then there's literally just drinking bacon grease. And we don't really care all that much about eating particularly healthy, as you can see with all this bacon, but I don't want to die that early. So as I said before, I did keep a bit of the bacon grease, and I went ahead and tossed some butter in there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and toss the onions in. As I said, that'll create the base for your broth. And when it's close to getting time for your onions to be done, when they're cooked to your liking, I cook them until they're basically see-through, or starting to get that way. And then I toss the bacon back in there and allow them to cook a bit more before we start adding the broth and everything else. And now my onions are done to how I like them, even though I kind of accidentally cooked them a bit longer than I probably anticipated, but it's fine. It's whatever. Go ahead and mix that bacon back into there. I lost a piece on the side there, but that's okay. Just toss it back in. It's fine. You'll be all right. Go ahead and give that a stir, allow that to cook a little bit more, and then you're going to go ahead and add the broth. Now, I didn't make the chicken broth ahead of time. Probably should have, but it kind of doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. So we're just going to put water in here for now. I did about 8 cups, which is the standard. Actually, I think I did about 10, just because I was using 2 packs of collard greens this time around. Like, I kind of doubled up because I wanted to be able to eat this for a while, so that's what I did here. So after you get your water in there, you want to toss your bouillon cubes in there and get this back up to a boil. I put about 7 in there. Up to 10 is the recommended amount, because I think it's 1 every 8 ounces, but I only put about 7 in there because I've been trying to go a little lighter on the seasonings and everything, so that this is my feeble attempt to do that. Alright, so after you have brought this to a boil, and you got it nice and boily, the bouillon has dissolved completely, you want to start adding your greens, but you want to start adding them very slowly, 1 batch at a time. Slowly just toss a handful in there. It'll cool down just a little bit and come right back up to a boil. You don't want this to cool down too much, so you can't throw all of them in there at once. So you toss a handful in there, let it kind of do its thing, and then once it brings itself back up to a boil, you toss another handful in there. And at this point, you're basically done. What I usually do after this is while it's cooking, I'll go in with a little spoon every now and then and just give it a taste to see, because this is going to render down a bit. You want this to render down to kind of lock in all those flavors and concentrate it a bit, but you're going to need to season it more afterwards depending on what your flavor profile is. So every now and then you go in there, you give it a taste. If it's too bland, you know, you want to toss either some seasoned salt or just regular salt in there. Outside of that, if it's just fine, you can just let it boil down and render to as much as you want to. A lot of people don't like a whole lot of juice or whatever in their collard greens. They eat them without the juice. They drain them. I eat them with it, so I like it to be nice and flavorful, so I don't render it down that much. But yeah, you could, like I said, I'm gonna leave that up to you how much you render it, and season to taste as you're cooking it. And once you've got it to that point to where you feel like it's flavored enough, I guess salty enough, I guess would be the proper terminology, then you're good to go. You got yourself some good homemade collard greens. This is about what you should expect from the final product. The greens will be nice and wilted down. The bacon will be nice and tender or whatever, like it won't be like all crispy anymore. And yeah, you'll be good to go. You can serve it with other things. You can eat it by itself. Sometimes what I like to do is keep quite a bit of the broth after the greens are gone or whatever, and just you know, sip on it like chicken broth or whatever, whenever you're feeling sick, or if you're going out and it's going to be a cold day. Sometimes the broth from like a chicken noodle soup or collard greens or something like that is actually really good to just sip on in really cold weather or something like that. I know it's getting warm out. I realize that it's getting hot, but I'm just telling you guys, if you have a bunch of that leftover broth, you can still do things with it. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. More videos to come because I got lots more cooking to do, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.